Today I'm gonna do some introductions to one of the world's most famous psychologists, whose name is Brenda Milner. So Brenda Milner was born in Manchester, England, curious from a very early age and a precocious learner. By 6 years old, she was already fluent in German and was taught French as a schoolgirl by her mother. Initially enrolling at Cambridge University in 1936 for mathematics, she says, I had not been long at Cambridge before I realized that I would never distinguish myself in mathematics, later switching to psychology, but nonetheless still appreciating the reasoning and intelligence offered by the math. The Department of Psychology at Cambridge had a developed psychological orientation and shared quarters with the renowned psychologist, uh, for example, Lord Edgar. It was during her time under supervisor Dr. Oliver at Cambridge that Miller learned the value of studying brain lesions and the possibility of examining cognitive disorders to gain insights into the functioning of the normal brain. Miller began her master's degree at Cambridge focusing on experimental psychology, which eventually became a project directed to helping the British War Force in 1939. Instead of her original research studying responses to sensory misinformation, Miller became part of a team interested in distinguishing fighter pilots from bomber pilots in aptitude tests. During the Second World War, she worked in Britain's Ministry of Supply, where she met her future husband, Peter Miller. While completing her master's degree at Cambridge in 1944, Brenda ventured to Canada, settling in Montreal. Brenda joined the Institut de Psychology at the University of Montreal, where she taught for 7 years. In 1950, Miller resumed her academic studies at McGill in the Department of Psychology. Under the supervision of Dr. Downard, she investigated the intellectual effects of temporal lobe damage in human brains, earning herself a PhD in 1952. Downard secured a tenured research position for her with Wilder Penfield at Neuron studying epileptic patients. However, Miller decided to continue her work with Penfield at the Neuron, despite Donna's warning that the psychologist would not last long in a neurological institute, stating, I began to carry out research at the MNI and knew immediately that this was the kind of work I wished to pursue, whatever the practical difficulties is. It was through this work at the Neuron that Miller gained recognition and was consequently asked by William Becher, a neurosurgeon in Hartford, to come to Hartford and work with a patient known only as HM. Dr. Miller's significant contributions to our scientific understanding of the structure of the human brain are in large part thanks to her thorough and methodical long-term studies on patients before and after well-documented brain excisions. In 1955, Miller met Henry Molaison, the famous patient HM, a 29-year-old man who underwent an experimental operation removing portions of his brain to relieve severe epileptic seizures. The surgery was successful with respect to treating his epilepsy. However, he suffered severe side effects, including the inability to commit new events to long-term memory. The moment Henry's attention was diverted, he became unable to recall events prior, even though Dr. Miller worked with him for more than 30 years. Molaison never remembered her name. Miller conducted careful experimentation with Molaison, which resulted in the discovery that while he did not remember learning specific tasks, he improved at them, showing that his motor memory was intact. He remembered how to perform certain physical drawing tests, even though he had no memory of learning them, which demonstrated that memory recollection is separate from other memory functions. to see that HM had learned the task perfect. Morrison claimed that to see that HM had learned the task perfectly, but with absolutely no awareness that he had done it before, was an amazing dissociation. If you want to know what was an exciting moment of my life, that was one. The concept of multiple memory systems was groundbreaking at the time and spurred a huge body of international research. Dr. Milner's dedicated work with Morrison was an early example of cognitive neuroscience research before the field has even been established. An important goal of cognitive neuroscience is linking brain structure to function, as Dr. Miller did by showing that the temporal lobes of the brain play a key role in memory. The 1957 article, which published the results of her memory research, had become one of the most cited publications in the field of neuroscience. In recent years, Dr. Miller has entered an increasingly public role, giving numerous interviews for television, radio, podcasts, newspapers, and magazines. She has become one of the Quebec and Canada's best-known scientists at home and around the world, in part due to national and international media reporting on her career and research. Dr. Miller was also invited to deliver some of the most prestigious lectures in the science. Among these was an address describing her seminal work on memory to the 2014 World Congress on Brain Behavior and Emotions in Montreal, and the inaugural Governor General lecture at Queen's University in 2005. In 2007, the Brenda Milner Foundation was created thanks to a major donation by Dr. Milner to support postdoctoral fellowships in cognitive neuroscience at the Neuro. The American Psychological Association created the Brenda and Milner Award for the best paper in behavioral neuroscience by a recent PhD graduate. These sponsorships ensure that Dr. Miller's name will continue to resonate in the neuroscience community for years to come.